Here's another video. Hopefully I have figured out how to do these videos without causing you guys motion sickness. So let's see how this goes. Something different today. It is an Islamic coin. It's from India, southern India. Fairly scarce because it's a fairly obscure sultanate called the Sultanate of Madura, which lasted for about 45 years between 1335 to about the early 1380s, and in that short period managed to have 8 sultans, or as they call it in the US, sultans, who ruled it. This is a coin from the first sultan, Jalaluddin Ahsan Shah, who ruled between 1335 and 1340 and was assassinated by one of his ministers. And one of the themes I have is people who ended badly, so he definitely fits the risk. Most of India at this point had been conquered by the Delhi Sultanate, and particularly in the reign of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. But in the last decade of his reign, the southern half of India basically just broke away. And Madura was one of the first to break away, being one of the furthest away from the capital. And Jalaluddin's son Ibrahim, who was serving the Sultan, paid for it with his life, whereas the really ticked off Sultan took revenge and killed him. As I said, Madura is a fairly obscure sultanate. It was surrounded by hostile neighbors, and it doesn't seem to have had particularly great rulers of great vision, or even rulers who treated their mostly Hindu minority with any particular sign of respect, because even the Muslim chroniclers basically note a series of wars between the Sultanate and its attempt to keep its Hindu population in check. Ultimately, the Sultanate would run up against two powerful states, first against the Hoysalas of Samudra, who should have destroyed the Sultanate within a decade of its formation, but Veer Ballal III got overconfident and paid for it with his life. But finally, the new rising power of Vijaynagar was just too much for the Sultanate to take care of. And the eldest son of Bukka I, Kumara Kampana, eliminated the Sultanate in the 1380s. Now, coins of Madura are fairly scarce. Most of them are Bilan. This one seems to be slightly higher in silver. It is listed as a Third-Tanka. Tanka was the big unit of Indian Islamic silver at this point, which was about 10 point something grams. This one is 3.64 grams. It's sometimes listed as 24 Gani. Gani is a very confusing unit. The original smaller fractional coin was the Jalal, but if it had a higher amount of silver, it appears that it had a higher value, because obviously back then the amount of silver affected the value of the coin, and the coinage was getting fairly debased. I most often see this listed as a Third-Tanka. Sometimes I see it listed as 24 Gani, GNI, which is again a smaller fractional denomination. The Sultanate did have some gold tankas, which are really rare and expensive. But again, this was a Sultanate which was basically fighting with its back to the wall, so you're not going to see very fancy coinage here. One of the problems with Indian Islamic coinage is that it does not it's often the legend is off the flan, and this is like an anti-forging technique, and in this coin that is not the case, thankfully, which makes it easier to read the legend. So let's look at the legend quickly. It's a fairly simple legend. This is the obverse. There are two lines, and the top line says Jalal al-dunya. So this little thing over here, that's the J, it's almost merged with the L, so it goes Jalal al-dunya and والدين. Jalal is glory, dunya is world, wa is and, والدين, glory of the faith. So glory of the world and glory of the faith. slightly grandiose title for this ruler. And then let's flip over and see the other side of this coin. And it's not on the same axis, so let's look at this. And then it has the name of the Sultan Ahsan Shah, except it's upside down. Shah is on the top and Ahsan is here. Fairly easy to read. And then the last little trick on this is a date. And now by now, Hindu numerals have become Arabic numerals, and instead of frustrating you with writing the name out in letters, they had started writing it out in numbers, and they were gradually, this made it to Europe through the Italian traveler and mathematician Fibonacci. But this has a date of 735. Now anybody who reads Arabic will note that the 5 here is different. It doesn't look like the round heart-shaped symbol that is the typical 5 in Arabic. And Goran and Goenka, who wrote the seminal book of Indian Sultanate coins, note that this is sort of a transitional letter, and this is an early depiction of the letter 5, and that eventually became the number 5 as we see it. So again, it's 735 in the Islamic calendar. That comes to again approximately 1335, which is basically the year Ahsan Shah launched his rebellion, which probably is why this coin has decent silver, because again, this was a sultanate not with a lot of resources, which barely controlled the old Pandya kingdom heartland of Madura, and was fighting with its back to the wall. Most of the coinage you will get, and there will be a couple of smaller later coins from Madura coming up eventually. They are all belong, the ones you'll see, and the coinage is fairly scarce. It's a fairly obscure sultanate, and as I said, lasted only 45 years and has not left much of a mark on history. The biggest mark on history will be the almost accidental destruction of the Hoysala kingdom, which had been the big south empire in the Karnataka region, when Veer Ballal III, against one of Ahsan Shah's successors, had almost them defeated, got overconfident, allowed himself to be surprised, and then killed, which destroyed the Hoysala state. So that's it for this one. Short video, a little longer actually than usual, so we'll try to keep it trimmed down. Again, a Third-Tanka. The mint is, there's no mint on this, but it's probably Madura, of the Sultanate of Madura, Jalaluddin Ahsan Shah, the first Sultan, who lasted 5 years before meeting a sticky end. See you soon.
I'm sick and tired of living in a van down by the